Universidad Católica de Santiago, Guayaquil, Fray Vallejo Campus. A randomized controlled trial of an aerosolized vaccine against measles. Introduction. Aerosolized vaccine can be used as a needle-free method of immunization against measles, a disease that remains a major cause of illness and death. Data of the immunogenicity of aerosolized vaccine against measles in children are inconsistent.
Let's go to something that's pretty current. In 2014-15, measles became a hot topic. You touched on it in your talk today, and it became very controversial. People still say the vaccines almost eradicated that disease, and now it's brought up, a couple hundred cases were brought up. 100 or so, something like that. And it's called an outbreak, and there's panic. What do you say to that?
Well, first of all, 2 years ago, the CDC just redefined their definition of the word outbreak. Now, an outbreak is defined by CDC as 3 or more cases in the same place. So the other funny thing about, I like what you just said about that measles was, it was solved by the vaccine, or it was cured by the vaccine. That is a standard marketing phrase used over and over again in mainstream media with nothing really behind it. I actually did the research when I wrote all these editions of this textbook, Vaccination is Not Immunization, and what I discovered is that the initial textbook reference for this exact point, which is in every library in the United States, is a book called International Mortality Statistics by Michael Alderson. And in that book, he will show you the true epidemiology of how measles was over 95% gone before the MMR shot was introduced in 1978. So, but that was very, very good the way you did that, because that was very glib and it was very matter of fact, and that's exactly the way they talk. Like they assume that that everybody will just agree with these false statements, these non-scientific facts, these non-facts.
Definition. Measles is a highly contagious disease that might result in outbreaks in populations where 10% of the people are susceptible. Symptoms. The symptoms of measles generally appear about 7 to 14 days after a person is infected. Measles typically begins with high fever, cough, runny nose, and red watery eye. Methods. Children were randomly assigned to receive a single dose of vaccine by means of either aerosol inhalation or a subcutaneous injection. The primary endpoints were seropositivity for antibodies against measles and adverse events 91 days after vaccination. The non-inferiority margin was 5 percentage points.
Here's another area in which I feel like we're headed in the wrong direction. I want to get serious for a minute if I could, because I've been hearing a lot of talk lately, and I don't know if this is more prevalent in LA than other places, but I feel like it probably is, but there's a small but still sizable group of people who are choosing not to vaccinate their children. Here in LA, there are schools in which 20% of the students aren't vaccinated because parents here are more scared of gluten than they are of smallpox. And as a result, we now have measles again. We've got measles. I want to say something about it. I know if you're one of these anti-vaccine people, you probably aren't going to take medical advice from a talk show host, and I don't expect you to. I wouldn't either. But I would expect you to take medical advice from almost every doctor in the world. See, the thing about doctors is they didn't learn about the human body from their friend's Facebook page. They went to medical school where they studied all sorts of amazing things, like how to magically prevent children from contracting horrible diseases by giving them a little shot. You know those little shots of Botox? Which is botulism, by the way. You get in your face to make your head look smooth and your eyes look crazy. A little shot like that and poof, polio is gone. But some people do not buy into that because they did a Google search and Jenny McCarthy popped up and she had clothes on. So they listened to what she had to say and decided not to vaccinate their kids. Now, and by the way, I want to say, this would all be okay if your kids were the only ones affected. They're your kids, but they're not, because unvaccinated kids put all children in danger, especially babies who are too young to get the vaccination shot. But of course, that's according to doctors, so, take that with a grain of salt. Now, some people are saying kids who aren't vaccinated shouldn't be allowed to go to school or daycare or go to public places, but here's where I think it should go. If you are one of those people who knows more than doctors, that's fine, no vaccinations, but you're not allowed to go to the doctor anymore. Okay? Why would you even want to go to a doctor who knows less than you do? So, if you fall and you cut your head open, you will not be admitted to the emergency room. Stay at home, find that sewing kit you stole from the Marriott, and stitch it up yourself, Doc. The doctor will see you never. Oh, by the way, you should also let your kids smoke. Why wouldn't you? The only people who say not to are doctors, and they don't know. So I feel like this is starting to snowball. So we invited some real doctors to address this. Again, these are not actors. These are actual medical professionals. Every one of them is a real doctor. So hear them out and then decide for yourself.
I am a doctor.
I'm a doctor.
I'm a doctor.
I'm a doctor.
And I believe in vaccinations.
And I believe in vaccinations.
If you don't vaccinate your kids, it can endanger their lives.
The potential downsides of vaccinations are almost non-existent.
The cumulative scientific and medical communities are in absolute full agreement
That there is basically no reason not to vaccinate your kids.
No reason.
Which is why I cannot believe we have to make this PSA.
I thought we settled this in the 50s.
Hey, remember that time you got polio? No, you don't, because your parents got you vaccinated.
I did 4 years of undergrad, 4 years of medical school.
And 3 years of pediatric residency.
I had to go to school for 8 years.
I'm pretty sure I know what I'm talking about.
But you people still won't listen.
Now I have to use my only day off to talk to you idiots about vaccines?
I want to finish watching Breaking Bad.
I'm only halfway through the second season.
But instead, I've got to come here.
Because you listened to some moron who read a forwarded email.
Perfect.
All these people had to set up cameras, lights, sound equipment, so that I could tell you to do something we've been doing for a century. Look at all these people.
This is stupid.
Get your kids vaccinated.
Get your kids vaccinated.
Get your kids vaccinated.
Get your kids vaccinated or lose my number.
Get your kids vaccinated, or these doctors may never find out that Walt dies at the end of Breaking Bad.
Are you kidding me, dude?
Paid for by professionals who know what the hell they're talking about.
Thank you, doctors. I am Jimmy Kimmel. Thanks for watching.
Conclusion. Aerosolized vaccine against measles as compared with subcutaneously administered vaccine result in statistically inferior level of seropositivity at 91 days in children who were 9.0 to 11.9 months of age. Profiles of adverse events were similar in the two groups, and adverse events associated with vaccination were related. Last video.
The measles outbreak is spreading. Just this past week, hundreds of people in New York may have been exposed when a college student infected with the disease rode an Amtrak train through the state. This morning, 102 reported cases in 14 states. And this has put new focus on the debate surrounding vaccinations. So let's have that debate. Let's bring in Alex Berzo, the founding editor of Real Clear Science. He wrote a column for USA Today about jailing parents who refuse to vaccinate their children. And Mary Holland, a research scholar at NYU's School of Law. She's written a guest blog for Harvard Law against legal action against parents. Great to have both of you here for this debate this morning. Alex, I want to start with you because this controversial op-ed that you wrote for USA Today suggesting that parents who don't vaccinate should be jailed. Let me read an excerpt of it. You say, like drunken drivers, the unvaccinated pose an imminent danger to others. They pose a lethal threat to the most vulnerable, the immunocompromised, such as HIV or cancer patients and infants who have yet to receive their vaccines. Anti-vaccine parents are turning their children into little walking time bombs. They ought to be charged for endangering their children and others. Now, Alex, are you trying to just get a reaction? Are you intentionally being sort of extreme, or do you really think that thousands of parents should go to jail?
No, I think that we should implement some sort of enforcement through persuasion, through pediatricians that will refuse to accept patients. We should maybe implement fines, and as a last resort, in extreme cases, put someone in jail for 24 hours while they vaccinate their kids. I certainly wouldn't support prison for people. No.
So Mary, as a legal scholar and as the mother of a child with regressive autism, what do you say to people like Alex, he's not alone, who think that parents who choose not to vaccinate should be dealt with in the strongest measures?
I think it's important to remember, Allison, that as a legal matter, all vaccines are considered unavoidably unsafe. In other words, all vaccines, like the illnesses that they're intended to prevent, carry inherent risks. People are injured by vaccines. More than 3,800 people have been compensated by the federal government for vaccine injury, including death. So brain damage and death are common side effects of the vaccines, just as they are of the illness.
Well, death isn't a common side effect. I mean, there have been 57, from what I read in terms of the numbers from the Health and Human Services, there have been 57 deaths in the past something like 25 years. It's not much, but if you're the parent of one of those 57 kids, it's a shocking number.
It is. And if you look at the deaths from measles, the disease in the United States, according to the CDC, there's been one death in the last 20 years. So in some respects, the vaccine poses real risk to some people. And I think the best people to make that decision are the parents, based on informed consent.
Alex, what about that? What about that legal argument that parents need to know that vaccines can be risky, they can result in deaths, as the HHS numbers show, and parents are not told that by their pediatricians?
Well, the numbers are very, 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 very small. In 1980, before we started widespread mass vaccinations, 2.6 million people globally died from measles. To this day, 400 people throughout the world die every day from measles. Measles kills 1 in 1,000 children who get it. 1 in 20 who get it will come down with pneumonia, which is a very, very serious infection, which can be lethal in and of itself. So you have to compare the risk of getting measles to the risk of vaccinating against measles. I was checking the CDC statistics. They said there's no reliable mortality data on the MMR vaccine because deaths are so infrequent. The most serious side effects from the MMR vaccine are seizures, which happen about 1 in 3,000 vaccines, and allergic reactions, which happen about 1 in a million. But the CDC itself said that there were no deaths from the MMR vaccine.
So I think Alex is not talking about the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program, which is a federally funded program to deal with vaccine injuries. The pharmaceutical industry and doctors have almost no liability, and for that reason, we created this. So in that program, there have been 57 allegations of death and over 350 allegations of compensated cases for vaccine injury from MMR.
But what about Alex's larger point, Mary? Hold on, Alex, just one second. About his larger point that if you give parents the choice, they're not really the experts, and if parents choose not to vaccinate their children, then there could be an outbreak, and there could be more the kinds of deaths from measles and other diseases that we saw prior to 1980.
Right. Well, I think life carries real risks, and I think the best people to make decisions are parents together with their healthcare providers. Remember, we have mandates in 50 states for the MMR. It's not like we have vast numbers of people opting out. We have a very small percentage, and they have